Welcome to the Dialed and Driven Hockey Mentality podcast, brought to you by Vaughn Custom Sports. I'm Jeff Lerg, former professional goaltender. Alongside me today is Natalie Ferenc, our awesome producer. Chris Palmer's not with us today, so Nat will do her best to come on board and be full-time with us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you. So we've had some new segments come in over the coming weeks here. We're now on over a full year worth of episodes. So we've talked a lot about the mentality, how to build it, how we can actionably take steps for all the individuals with maybe learning some lessons from my stories, your stories, and Chris's history as well. So now we've introduced this new segment. It's called the Dialed In Athlete of the Week. So we're going to mention 2 athletes per week that are modern day athletes that are really just relevant people that our youth athletes can relate to now. Because although I did play for a long period of time, that was a while ago. So, and Chris as well. So our Dialed In Athlete, first athlete I want to bring up is the captain of the Colorado Avalanche, Gabriel Landeskog. And if you're unfamiliar with his story, he's someone who's really been the model athlete for showing perseverance and self-belief after after major injury and dealing with recovery. And I know that I've even spoken with a handful of athletes this past week who are dealing with lingering injuries and trying to get themselves up to 100%. And also, I've even had a couple conversations with those that are having season-ending surgeries. So I know it's a very difficult part of the game. Unfortunately, with the amount of training that goes into modern-day athletes, injuries are happening to younger and younger athletes as they grow up. So Gabriel Landeskog, just to kind of give a streamlined version of his history and why I brought him up. So he had this long undiagnosed injury, okay, that really cost him over 1,000 days of missed playing time. Over 1,000 days of missed playing time. He went from June 26, 2022. The game that he had for his last game was the Colorado Avalanche winning the Stanley Cup. So he was as happy as you could possibly be with as any athlete. And then his next game after June 26, 2022, his next game that he played was in April 23rd, 2025. So 3 years virtually of playing time missed. And the crazy thing is that his injury actually happened in 2020, like in the playoffs of 2020, 2 years before that, the initial injury. So he kind of had this undiagnosed knee injury that happened to come from his teammate's skate hitting him in the knee, ended up damaging some cartilage. It was a confusing injury to really diagnose. Like no one really knew what was the real issue at hand. So he played sporadically throughout, trying to get it fixed. We listened to different doctor after doctor. But really, the mentality building came when, can you imagine winning the Stanley Cup? Being the happiest you possibly can be, and then having virtually 3 years of playing time off?
Yeah, no, I can't even imagine, especially the knee surgery that he went through too is supposed to be just a major procedure.
Yeah, like no one could really, these doctors couldn't figure it out. We know how world-class medicine is now, and it wasn't just this quick, this is what the problem is, let's do it, let's get you back. It was, I feel like that happened from kind of seeing the story from afar. It was like that was happening time and time again. It was like, oh, maybe it's this. And that's for an athlete, that's the most frustrating thing, is when there's really no timeline.
Yeah, because the cartilage transplant surgery happened in May of 2023. So 2022, he had a knee surgery and then another one in 2023, which, gosh, that 3 full seasons and rehabbing all of that is just what a mental...
What a grind.
Yeah,
what a grind. And then he had some quick action in the American Hockey League during the playoffs just to get back on the ice. And then in his second game back, after 1,000 days off in the NHL, he scored a goal in the playoffs, which is pretty legit.
I can imagine that's reassuring for him, especially mentally, being back and then get a goal in your second game. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that was last April. And then now he's playing full-time this year. He's back up to being an everyday player, just an amazing story. And he was the captain of the team, too. So imagine this team has their captain. They win the Stanley Cup. He accomplishes the ultimate goal that captains seek out to accomplish. Then he's off all this time. They're kind of battling without, have to name another captain for a period of time. Now he's back. Now they're playing. He's a half a point a game player. So Gabriel Landeskog, if you're interested in learning more on his story, there's a ton of content on it. You can learn a lot more from him.
Yeah, awesome. Well, our second athlete is not a hockey player. She is actually a figure skater. And I brought this story up just because I think it's something that honestly doesn't really get talked about. So Alyssa Liu is a U.S. figure skater. She has been figure skating essentially her whole life. But the reason why this story is just so cool is because she actually retired at the age of 16. And if you're following her now, she just recently came back and won, I believe, a gold medal in her world championship in 2025. So
That's
she,
legit.
went from I'm retired to calling her coach one day after a ski trip that she decided, hey, I miss this. I miss being on the ice, the adrenaline rush, whatever it was, and coming back and competing in 2025. And she is considered a top contender for the 2026 U.S. Winter Olympic team.
That's a wild story.
Yeah.
It's like the law of 10,000 hours. Like it takes you all that time to master it. And then she obviously had all that time already done by the time she was 16 and retired.
Yeah, because she started at age 5. At age 12, she became the youngest woman to ever land a triple axel in an international competition, which I can imagine is absolutely insane. And then in 2019, she became the youngest U.S. senior national champion at 13 years old, breaking, I think, a 20-year record or something like that, which is...
Just imagine you're 13, but you're a senior national champion. You're 1 year as a teenager.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then 2022, right before she retired, she won a bronze at the Beijing Winter Olympics.
Wow.
So she literally went to the top of the absolute top.
And then now wants to repeat that feeling.
Yeah.
That's the thing. She's missing it. Missing that feeling of accomplishing the goals. Well, beautiful. So
I'm excited to watch her historic comeback as she hopefully makes the figure skating team.
Skating,
yeah.
Sounds good. Well, awesome. Great athlete. So that concludes our Dialed In Athlete segment that we'll bring to everyone weekly here. Awesome to learn from those that are excelling at the highest levels.
So now we're going to transition into our question and answer segment led by me, Natalie Ferenc. And even though Chris isn't here, you guys get to hear my answers this time for these questions. So to start off, our first question reads, do you have any regrets from your playing days? Jeff, you can answer first.
I don't have any regrets with effort and preparation put in everything because I really prided myself on being all in, anything I could possibly do to try to be successful for the team. That I was just chasing a championship every year. That was really ended up being my goal every year. The regrets I have were not executing when I wanted those things that bad. The tough part about sports is only one team can win it all every year. So everyone else is going home losing their last game of the year and then potentially thinking about that all summer. And those were the feelings that you look back on. Yes, they help you grow, but I played on some really good teams and we came up short in playoffs. So I would have loved to have this podcast setting, this basement, more decorated with more championship trophies and pictures of teams that accomplish it, because that's a great feeling when you accomplish it. And I played in some really good teams and we came up short, too many times for my liking.
Yeah, my answer is a little bit similar. I think not recognizing the fun in it when I really should have. And mine really goes back to college. I think you don't realize how fast those 5 years go. And putting in, I would say, a little bit more effort in times where you're really down on yourself, and finding the fun in it all the time. Because when it's over, it's over.
I know. That's a tough pill. You got to enjoy it while you can.
Exactly. So our second question reads, if you could go back, what would you focus on developing earlier in your career?
I'll speak goalie specific in this one. I know we have a lot of youth goalies who listen. And for me, I never realized how hard it could be at the highest levels to handle screens and tips. Now, that might sound shocking from a small 5'5" goalie, but as I kept playing in my playing days, like screens and tips were almost felt impossible at times because the body's become bigger. The puck became so unpredictable at times. You could be in perfect position, do everything right. You could do everything that we talk about, prepare, be disciplined, do everything, have a great warm-up, and then you could be in perfect position. The puck could be going 3 feet wide, hit off a defender's skate and go in, and then you lose 1-0. It's like you think you can do everything, but you really can't. So screens and tips undoubtedly were the skill that I wish I just had mastered, and it would have helped me along the way, probably win a few more games.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Screens and tips are something that I wish I also was able to develop earlier in my career. However, I think puck handling was a little bit better or bigger for me. I think in more of a mentality standpoint, I think developing some type of pregame routine more consistently was something that I wish that I focused on earlier, because I really didn't start hammering a routine in consistently until probably my sophomore year of college, which I could have saved a lot of inconsistent games for myself.
That's a good one. I have the opposite of that. Probably to that point, though, developing a pregame routine that really matters for the game. Obviously, I was one who kind of had too much of a pregame routine, and then it would sometimes paralyze me if I couldn't get all the things in or everything wasn't perfect before the game. So that balancing act of really knowing how to prepare appropriately is definitely something that takes a lot of years of reps and a lot of games to go through to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that sums up our question and answer segment. If you would like to leave us a question, please visit our website, dialedandrivenmentality.com. Or if you'd like to not remain anonymous, you can also DM us on Instagram at dialedandriven. Now, here's an ad from our sponsor.
If you only train your body, you're leaving your biggest advantage untrained. You physically train hard, you care, you want it, but confidence disappears after one mistake, one bad goal, one tough practice. This is Jeff Lerg from the Dialed and Driven Mentality Podcast. Here's the truth: most athletes never get taught. Your mindset isn't something you hope shows up, it's something you train. That's why we built the Dialed and Driven Success Formula. It's a step-by-step mentality building system that teaches you how to reset faster, stay locked in, and compete with confidence, no matter what just happened. This isn't hype. It's structure, habits, and mental reps that actually translate to performance. If you're tired of letting your emotions control your game, go to dialedandrivenmentality.com and start building the mentality that separates serious athletes from everyone else. Stop hoping. Start training your mindset. All right, awesome, Nat. That was a great start with our questions and our Dialed In athletes. Now, since it's just the two of us, obviously we spend a lot of time together around our hockey group with not only our coaches of our goalie training company, but also with the goalies we coach. And we both have had athletic experience. And as we, chat a little bit more, and as we kind of look at the modern landscape as compared to the times when we grew up and were being recruited, things have changed. So we want to talk a little bit today on recruitment. We'll learn a little bit more on what you went through from the female market. I'll mention a few things on my history, but some of the stats just with the modern day life, it's crazy that the way college sports are right now. Like it is like playing minor league sports at every school. It's like you're just as good as today's practice.
Yeah. And the NIL now is just absolutely taking over college sports.
It's wild. Like you used to, like when you probably have a full closet worth of your Lindenwood stuff, By the time, if you're a modern athlete, you'd have 3 schools filled up, maybe 4.
Right. Yeah.
And I looked up a couple stats before we were chatting about this. And so here's some of the numbers starting in 2017-18, kind of the modern college life. You were probably in college.
2019.
There you go.
Almost.
So you're a young buck, Natalie Ferenc, going into college. Yeah. And at that time, prior to your freshman year, about 12% of athletes would be considered transfers. And that's in the two primary sports, NCAA basketball, NCAA football. Okay, so the big markets, a lot of schools, a lot of data, a lot of athletes, about 12%. Now, any guesses on what that number is?
Gosh, I mean, I just read a stat that 1,000 NCAA football players are in the transfer portal. So I'm going to go upwards of 70.
That's high.
Really? Okay.
Well, there's a lot of athletes, about 45%.
Okay.
45%. But really, that's the impression of. There is no loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
There is no, really school spirit. Now athletes are kind of their own brand. They're we used to have that recruiting phase when we were young, be like the only time that you're being recruited. But now for modern athletes, this is the message is you're always being recruited. Like every day you're being recruited or you're building your street cred because your coaches might be looking at your performance today, if you're a college athlete, or even now it's trickled down into youth, and they're ready to replace you like that.
Yeah, I know. It's absolutely crazy. I mean, even like you said, at the college level, you don't stop getting recruited. You could put your name in the transfer portal and people you don't even know your name because they're watching you.
Yeah, and that's NCAA coaches' jobs. Like they're
right.
One of the assistants at all these levels. They got to just be all over that portal. And we're not going to pretend to be experts on that, but that's just some of the facts. But really, for our discussion today, with our modern athletes, and especially with you on the female front, I know we have a lot of female listeners. Give us a little bit more history on what your recruiting experience was, because we learned a little bit about your playing career when you got to college, but what was it like for you when you were being recruited to eventually end up at Vermont, which was your first school?
Right. Yeah, So my first recruiting experience was when I was 13. So the rule now in place for at least the women's NCAA is that they cannot talk to you until I believe it's June of your sophomore year. So at this point, I'm 13 years old, so I believe I'm in 8th grade. And at that point in my life, 8th grade, 7th grade, I didn't even know that you could play college sports. Like I was oblivious to the whole college world. I just thought I'm going to play this for fun. And I just happened to be good enough. And Division I school reached out to my coach and I was on 14U, and that's when it started for me. And I did my research then because I'm like, oh, well, what is this? What is this world? And that's when mine really started, which I can imagine yours was very different.
Yeah, I grew up watching college hockey. My dad played at Ohio State. My uncle played at Michigan. I was touring those locker rooms. I was at 12 or 13. I was already envisioned myself there and winning a championship.
Yeah.
And there's you, like, oh, I didn't know I could play.
Yeah, I mean, I knew obviously the men's had collegiate everything. Like, I went to Michigan games, Notre Dame games. I remember as a kid, but I mean, I had no idea that women could actually play college hockey. Mm-hmm. So from there, my recruiting process kind of took a turn for the better because we ended up winning states that year in Michigan, my 14U year, which then allowed us to go to nationals because we were a very bad team. We won 1-0 in the state tournament.
For the record,
yeah.
Nat.
I did get a shutout, so went to nationals, and that was really the first time that I noticed scouts. Before then, I didn't even know people were watching me. And so we went to nationals that year. That's when I realized there's actual bunch of colleges watching you. And from there, I ended up moving organizations. I played for Little Caesars after that, before I played for Honey Baked for my 14U year. Before that, I played boys hockey. So I was not even aware of the girls' world really, because just played boys. But once I went to Little Caesars, my 16U year, then I started getting scouted by more schools, and that kind of ramped up just a little bit though. And then I just consistently made national camps throughout high school, but I didn't commit anywhere until, my September of my junior year in high school, which at that time was considered late.
Yeah, that's interesting. But before I go into that next step, you said something that's really relevant. You didn't really get overwhelmed or stressed about where you were going to end up. You just kept doing your thing and performing well and kept going to the national camps and kept just being one of the best or the best goalie at your age group in your region, in your state. And that's really where I know a lot of goalies or a lot of athletes just completely lose sight of really what their real goal is and how they're going to get there. Like there's so many athletes who their parents will reach out and they'll say, hey, I want to go on a visit up to Michigan State. Should I just call the team and try to get some time with them? And it's like, no, just if you're not even on the radar of your current age group, like let's start there. So that's what you did. You weren't overwhelmed by it. You weren't stressed by where you're going to end up. You just kind of kept loving the game and kept going. And then eventually you went to those national camps and obviously teams kept seeing you. And then what was that, 16? You said you eventually got offers starting to come in?
Yeah, the only offer I actually had was from Vermont. I just talked to, I would say, 3 schools more consistently and probably 5 schools total. But again, I emailed schools, but I was never set on I'm going to go here, which I think is very interesting because a lot of players really set themselves, like you said, on a few schools that are just
right
up there. Yeah.
You were that's where now there's so much information, there's so much data, there's so many stats and things put in everyone's face. Like they can't really be as naive as you were, So I think that was the benefit, though. You got to play naive a little bit, and it is an interesting time period for the youth athletes. Like now you have 13-year-olds who have advisors, or as they call them, agents. If you're the player, you're like, oh, I got an agent, but really you're still a youth athlete. It's someone there who wants to help guide you in your journey. Some of them are very helpful. Others, they can give you a false confidence.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the best players that have advisors. You don't have to have one to have success. If you do have one, play well because it'll help them and it'll help you. That's really the only point of having someone there. They're just someone who can advocate for you. So you didn't have that. You had to advocate for yourself. You had to email teams, and yes, they saw you, but also when you took that step, it helped.
Yeah, and something completely different from what you just said. People have agents nowadays and all this help. My parents were not involved with my recruiting process. I did all my research on schools teams, on what I wanted to study, on if that school had what I wanted to study. I set up all my calls, sometimes with the help of a coach because they were really that middleman to help schedule calls. But I did all my conversations, all my questions, which I think was a very, very important thing for me because I was in control of my own destiny. I didn't really have an agent or my parent telling me, you need to do this, you should do that, which I want you to touch on because your dad played at Ohio State. And I know you've talked about this before on the podcast of how you kind of wanted to go to Ohio State, but then Michigan State ended up working out for you, but you also had other schools watching you.
Yeah, so first day that schools could call me, again, I forget the exact age, but I remember it was in the summer, June of whatever age I was, maybe 15, I believe. I get 3 calls that day. And the first one was from Colorado College. I remember being at my house, the old house phone rings, at my house talking to Colorado College. And, of course, the first school calls me, I'm like, I'm going to be a Tiger. I'm going to Colorado College. And then later that day, Ohio State called me. And we're from Metro Detroit area, 4 hours away from Columbus. So it's not like we went to or go to Columbus all the time. Of course, I'd been there and had seen the history of, when my dad played there, but it wasn't like we were diehard Ohio State fans. But of course, I want to go there. Mm-hmm. And then Notre Dame calls as well. So now I have 3 schools in the hopper. Really, the good school at the time, hockey-wise, was Colorado College. The other 2 programs were okay. They were in powerhouses, but I didn't care. I was 15. I'm like, college teams are talking to me. So, of course, my initial interests were in those schools. As time evolved, I continued to play pretty well. Like I was sought after as a 15-year-old by those schools because I think I was playing up a year or 2 and did really well. And then eventually, though, my recruiting kind of came to a halt because I was, again, the anomaly. I was this 5'5" goalie. Goalies were getting bigger. I was the one that was like, can this guy make it? Can he not make it? So my first contact point was the very first day that you could talk to an athlete. And then I had friend after friend that was getting junior commitments and college commitments. And then I had to wait all the way until, must have been 17 at the end of my first year of junior hockey. I had to be named Rookie of the Year, more or less, to get a college scholarship. Like, it wasn't until that point, almost 2 years from the first time talking to a school till I finally had a commitment. Until that whole process took place.
Well, you bring up something really important there, is that the first school that you talked to wasn't the one you went to, and that wasn't the same thing for me either. The first school I talked to was Quinnipiac. I went to Vermont. I didn't start talking to Vermont. Gosh, I talked to Quinnipiac the first time when I was 13. Probably 2 years later, Vermont didn't even reach out until maybe I was 16. Maybe I committed. No, maybe I committed when I was. Anyways, But again, like, I didn't talk to them for years. However, they were watching me for years. So I don't think anyone should really get their heart set on that first school and then just have your dreams crushed or feel like, oh, it's not working out for me if first school you talk to ends up ghosting you.
Well, and now you might even commit to that school, but now more than ever, those commitments really don't mean anything, even when you do officially get on campus. You're still always looking to build your game and build who you are. And there's a few different athletes I grew up with. They made those college commitments, and then it was the story of, go play another year of juniors. You're not quite ready,
right?
And then eventually that transitioned into, why don't you go find another school to verbally commit to?
Yeah.
So you still have to perform.
Yeah, the men's landscape is just, I don't want to say all over the place, but just so many things can happen from the time that you verbally commit somewhere to then play a few years of juniors, and then you could be going somewhere completely different, whether it's Division I, Division III. I mean,
and we've seen things change for the good too.
Absolutely.
We've had players kind of come out of nowhere. That couple that I know personally were kind of just on an 18U or a 16U average Tier 1 AAA team. Like, really by no means were they the best player yet of their age group, but they kind of found this spark of consistent excellence, and then they're playing Division I 3 years later. So they kind of stayed with it, stayed along their path, kept believing. So you don't have to be that all-star at 12 and 13. It's really about the longer path of development. Of course, it helps if you're a top-end player at that age, but if you don't, like we've discussed, if you don't grow and adapt and continue to evolve, you're not going to be that one at 18, 19 playing at that high level.
So, Jeff, we have been talking about really before college, more so, 15, 16 and under. Let's kind of dive into what you experienced from 15 right before you went to juniors.
Well, I experienced so much of the business that next level is, especially not only with the physical demands of what teams and colleges were looking for. It kind of shocked me to realize how intense that next level is, but also with school-wise, like I mentioned, I was talking with 3 schools right away, and then eventually, I don't even know if all 3 of them let me know when they committed to another goalie. They just kind of moved on without getting a hold of me. So those were some of the things that I kind of learned. You better just keep showing up, performing, and doing your best, and keep selling yourself in a sense to keep building your credibility. And we've talked a lot about my story, in particular, just kind of how I found my way to get to college and talked about success there. But let's learn a little bit more. I want to hear more on the female path. You're a young teenager lighting it up in Metro Detroit. You have a school or two talking to you. Like, what then was the kind of the recipe before you got to Vermont?
I played with a lot of competitive players. A lot of them ended up going on to Division I schools. My goalie partner played at Ohio State. Very competitive. I feel that really helped me kind of push myself into high performing levels at that age. And then that summer, I would have made
I went to 19U.
Yeah, so then I went to 19U, but before, I jumped to 19U, but before that summer is when I made the Select 66 National Camp, which now I believe is called something different. It was held.
They get it out of like the national.
Yeah. So I made
camp in the summer, right? And
yeah.
You pick a team.
Yeah, so there's 15's National Camp, 16, 17's National Camp, and then Select National Camp. So I went to 15's National Camp when I was 15, 16's National Camp when I was 16, and then when I was 17, I didn't go to the regular National Camp, which was held, I think, in St. Cloud at the time. I went to this Select National Camp in Maine, which was more competitive, more people that they're selecting for the World Championship under 18 teams is kind of where they use that select pool from. So that summer, I mean, this is the only camps I did. I didn't do any type of goalie summer camp. I never did private lessons unless it was team practices with my goalie coach, Rob Liddell, who was also on the podcast. So I went to Select 66, which was in June or July, and then I got the call or email that I made the Select 33 camp. So then I went to a second camp that summer, which was held in Lake Placid, and then if you made that camp, you would then be on the rivalry series team against Canada. US and Canada play in a rivalry series in the summer. So did Select 33 camp in Lake Placid, ended up making the team for the under 18 U.S. national team for the rivalry series that happened at the end of August. From there, I played a game. I think we lost against Canada, and then went back to my life playing for Little Caesars back in Detroit, and did not hear really anything. Our team absolutely sucked at Little Caesars that year, so a lot of playing time, which I loved, and I thought that really got me ready for college. I then, going into December, got the call that I made the U18 U.S. World Championship team, where Worlds were held in Obihiro, Japan. So from there, I mean, I had a whirlwind of before college.
But you were committed?
Yes, I was committed, for a year or two already. So I mean, this was just prepping me for college. Yeah. I was so excited, playing with the best under 18 girls all around the world, and got silver, but it was just an amazing experience and learned a lot, not only about playing at the next level, but just what it's like being around these high performing athletes and coaches. And it really prepared me for college, which I then ended up going to August of 2019.
Yeah, interesting. But I think the biggest thing I take out of that is like you just kept taking care of that next step, and then the other stuff was just kind of taking care of itself. You know, it was like, okay, there's this Team Michigan that I have to perform well enough during the season and tryouts to make. Then I can go to the national camp, do that. Then you're going to be seen by scouts. And you did that year after year after year, which then set you up to get for the next opportunity. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that's really just at the core of all recruiting, all sports, all ages. It's getting yourself to be dominant at your current level instead of just being overwhelmed by what you hope can happen in the future.
Right, exactly. And I definitely just try to dominate at my current level, which ended up taking me to higher opportunities with the national team and committing to a Division I program.
Yeah, if you were, a 15-year-old girl that was like, oh, I can't wait one day in the future, I'll be playing for that Select 66 and to Select 33, and then that's all you thought about, but you didn't really take care of the day at hand. That's what happens, unfortunately, to many youth athletes. They're so worried about the next step, and then they try to take the recruitment as opposed to the recruitment just kind of organically happening by just performing really well at your current level.
Yeah, and something that kind of made me think back to this is I remember a lot you saying that your 5 best friends were all very, very high performing, played in the NHL, were captains of their respected collegiate teams. I really had one friend that ended up playing Division I college hockey. And I played with her from 14U when I played at Honeybaked when I first started getting scouted all the way up to 19U. We stuck together. But all my other friends played Division III hockey or really didn't play college hockey at all or didn't even play college hockey. They just quit. So I think it's something that you can be surrounded by these people, and it's very good to be surrounded by these high achieving people because it pushes you. But at the same time, I know some athletes, some of their friends aren't in that caliber. My best friend, who was a dancer and a volleyball player, and
didn't live your life.
Did not live my life at all. She was kind of just in the back seat along for the ride. But I think just talking to athletes and our listeners is that you need to develop some type of honesty and self-belief in yourself to at least hold yourself accountable and know what other people are doing at that high level, whether you actually get to see it, which I did when I played for the U18 team and going to these select national camps, or you learn from the ones that you can with social media and all this information that we have at our fingertips nowadays.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I remember when I went to those select camps at 15 years old and at 16 and 17. I remember kids that I met at the 15 camp, select 15 camp, I was still playing against them in the pros. I got to play against them in juniors, play against them in college, play against them in pro. It was like I grew up, in a sense, with some of these kids that are just from different parts of the country. And I remember a handful of them. I met them at 15. And now they're still involved in hockey one way or another, and many of them I played against at some capacity. And crazy, though, I've met them at 15 at these festivals. But that's what how the game is, though, because those players, though, they maintain the consistency of performance. There's, of course, many of them who fell off. But I just remember some of those names that a lot of them became college players and pro players. It was like, man, they were so good at this level. And then it was interesting to just see, the kids grow up that way, but they all took care of business. They all took care of performing well when it mattered most.
Yeah. Walk me through your timeline of when you first started talking to Michigan State. Where were you in your AAA playing days? And then what it looked like with your summer national camps and stuff that you did to kind of prepare yourself to walk onto campus your freshman year?
So before I went to Michigan State, I played for the Honeybaked program growing up all these years, really from the start of my youth days all the way through to when I completed my junior year of high school at the U18 level. I played that year at junior year of high school. And then during my junior year of high school, this Honeybaked 18U team, we were the number one ranked team in the country. And then Sidney Crosby and Shattuck St. Mary's, we were kind of the 1-2 team, and they obviously were awesome. I think we beat them 5-4. He had 4 assists, like he was amazing, and they won nationals. So that was awesome. It was a fun year. So we were a really good team. We had a handful of my teammates went on to play college. During that year, I had 3 tender offers at the time, which were junior teams that could kind of obtain my rights and kind of swoop me up before the junior draft occurred. So I committed to this Omaha Lancers team, which we talked about in the USHL. So I was one of the 3 tendered players. So again, talk about dominating your current level. I was dominating my current level. I had 3 offers. So I committed to Omaha, go finish my senior year in high school there. Talked about a lot of the growth I had that year being a young buck, 17-year-old, and a goalie partner who was 21. I had to earn my playing time. Took a long time to earn it, but I did. And then eventually, I kind of got on a roll that year. That one more school started talking to me, Nebraska, Omaha. They were right down the road. So no real schools were heavily recruiting me other than the 3 I already named. They were just kind of keeping in touch with me. Colorado College, Notre Dame, Ohio State, but no one really wanted to take the plunge to offer me because, again, I was this anomaly of a goaltender. So eventually, Nebraska, Omaha did offer me. They were right down the road.
That was your senior year of high school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So I finally got one school to say, yes, we'll take that little guy, But that was my only true scholarship offer. along the way, I had heard from my old coach, who's John Cooper. He's now Tampa Bay Lightning head coach, but he was my coach at Honey Baked. And he had mentioned to my family, like, hey, Michigan State's been calling me about you, about Jeff. So, just keep doing well. And he was the one who kind of got my dad connected with Michigan State assistant coach that after my first year of junior hockey. So I kind of lit it up in the year. I was on the all rookie team. I remember looking at the all rookie team when that came out at the end of the year, and every person on that team had a college scholarship except me. So I was the only one that wasn't committed. And then eventually, I think in the middle of the summer at that point, June or July, went on a visit to Michigan State. They offered me an opportunity to come in for one more year. Did not offer me a full scholarship because I was still a small goalie and a bit unproven at the next level. And I took the scholarship and then went on to go play one more year. So I knew the timeline of events. I knew that they had a goalie that year that was going to be a senior, and then when he left, they'd have room for me. And so I took that, though, to heart, that I still didn't get a full ride, even though I was this kind of a stud rookie goalie in the USHL. And then the next year, I set the all-time wins record in the USHL because I meant business. I said I'm going to go to college and make something happen. And then I went in as a freshman. So it took a lot of proving myself to eventually get there. Mm-hmm. Again, just to put it in context, for those athletes that are dreaming to play college sports, I was on the all-rookie team of the best junior league in the country and had one offer. I was the MVP of the whole league, like the wins record, and I had two offers. So that's what it took for me to get to that next level. So not easy.
Well, it's funny that you say that because you continued to have to prove yourself at Michigan State, but you meant business, and you definitely proved it.
Yeah, our team's success was not just by happenstance. There was a mission behind that, and I think that's why I love the dialed and driven mentality. That's what it takes. You can have all the skill development and training and private lessons in the world, but if you don't have the mentality, it's only going to take you so far.
Yeah, and I want to bring up kind of the characteristics that you feel like were, at least for you, of what coaches were looking for being recruited, but also what people were saying about you and why you were a catch.
Yeah. Well, you got to make yourself sellable. We talk about everyone is their own brand now, and you have to keep gaining credibility. And I know for me, I always took pride in being a super hard practice player. I know that was something that one of the reasons that I was easy to sell, even though I was short. I was a good teammate. I took pride in that. It wasn't just causing chaos or wasn't acting selfish around the locker room or the team. But really, it was just all about improving, all about getting better. And I love watching sports. I love watching coaches. And, there's a variety. If you just look at some of the characteristics, I love watching college sports, those programs that always have consistent success. They talk about what they look for in players, and they talk about, those that want to be part of a team and those that can be consistent in performance and things like that. So, I wasn't really thinking about those things. I had good coaches and good, upbringing with a competitive landscape. And that was just really what helped me be sellable.
Yeah. I asked one of my friends who is a Division I college coach now, and I asked her what were the characteristics or things that is an immediate red flag when talking to people that they're recruiting. And she essentially said that there's not much, but if you are overly confident in yourself and can't prove it, or very cocky and again, can't prove it and just is not a reliable and or good teammate and or person are things that it's just a turnoff for coaches. And you don't want to do that. You want to be somebody that's coachable, reliable, trustworthy, good teammate, hard worker, all those things.
Well, coaches don't want to deal with headaches.
No, absolutely not.
If you're the best player in the country, they still don't want to deal with your headache if you are that. So you gotta build those characteristics and really, the moral of this story is everyone's going to have a different story within the recruiting world and how their experience plays out. Get excited when someone shows interest, but don't think that's where your whole future is. You have that mentality that, you want to keep building your skill set and your ability to play at that next level each and every day. And then, just like your story, you kept going to select festivals and kept getting invited to more and more opportunities. Eventually that got you into a college opportunity and played college hockey for 5 years. Same with myself. I was going to these high level select festivals, select camps that USA Hockey put on. I was invited to those, making those select teams. Eventually I had to go prove myself in junior hockey. And then again, I had to go prove myself in college hockey and beyond. So you're always being recruited. It's just the nature of the world right now. And expect the unexpected.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that I wanted to touch on is that really just worry about yourself the whole time. It's you that you're going to rely on, especially once you get to that next level, because you got to sell yourself in recruiting. And if you're trying to be someone else, how can you sell that? Why would colleges want you if you're pretending to be someone else? And I think that even helped me when I transferred. I mean, I was always a reliable, trustworthy, good teammate person. And I mean, when I transferred and talked to a good handful of schools in the month that I was in the portal, they all said the same things that colleges told me when I was youth getting recruited.
No, well, that helps because everyone talks, coaches talk,
yeah.
Your teammates and your opponents know of you and who you are. And that's really why we keep hammering these points and just trying to bring them to light in different ways. So appreciate you giving us good detail on your experience on the female market. Obviously, we know there's many female goalies that listen to this, and hopefully you inspired them one way or the other to hopefully be the next Natalie Ferenc.
Whoa.
Yeah, there's only one playing for Team USA and doing amazing things. So thank you, Natalie, for coming on. And to all of our listeners, remember to stay dialed and driven on your goals, as that's the only way to accomplish success.
Oh, Jeff Lerg! One of the best saves you will ever see, keeps this game alive.
Chris Palmer again, the Hockey Mentality Podcast, dialed and driven.